RMJ Movie Reviews back again with a special request movie review by one of my subscribers. And one thing I want to start out and say, those of you guys who are subscribed to my channel and who have kind of faithfully made comments on my videos, and I talked with you guys, excuse me guys, and I talk with you back and forth faithfully about certain movies and things. And I do respond as quickly as I can, guys. I just want to say that I really, 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 really appreciate that. But my special viewer request review is for the 1985 classic Commando, starring my childhood hero, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh my God. This is an absolute undisputed classic. Oh my God. Well, I've said this in other videos before, that my entire love of film started with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime in the 80s. And I will say, if there is any other film in the golden era of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, which in my personal opinion would be Conan the Barbarian through True Lies in 1994. That gap of movies is Schwarzenegger at his height. That is prime golden era Arnold Schwarzenegger. And when I think of Schwarzenegger, that's my mind in Arnold Schwarzenegger. Everything after True Lies, just Batman and Robin, Eraser, and all that. Just the Sixth Day, Collateral Damage. It's just, I don't even, that end of days, those don't even come to mind. This film basically solidified what we knew Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in the 80s, which was, number one, he was an action guy, but this film in particular really set up the Arnold persona of, explosions, gunfights, and one-liners. And Arnold kind of given like a steely, like kind of stone Charles Bronson-esque Clint Eastwood kind of look. That this film set the template for the rest of Arnold's career, up until True Lies and Kindergarten Cop tweaked it a little bit, but this solidified that. Yes, previous to this, I believe, don't quote me guys, because I was only 5 years old when this movie came, but I think this was after Terminator. So I believe it was Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, I think Terminator, and don't quote me, I think Red Sonja, then Commando, I think. But then again, guys, I was only a small child. But either way, this is definitely one of my favorites from the era. I'll tell the basic story. I don't even really have to because all of you have seen it, but I'll just say it anyway. Basically, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a former Commando veteran. It's not really specified in the movie. One of his old enemies comes back to try to force him to do a job, and they kidnap his daughter to try to force him to do it. So Arnold Schwarzenegger has to go rescue his daughter back, and he kills a bunch of people doing it. That's the storyline for the movie. One of the greatest things about Commando is that it is the complete, and when you think of 80s action cinema, this is Commando. Commando is the template of 80s action cinema, because 80s action cinema is often parodied and made fun of now, as of much of entertainment from the 80s is. But when you particularly think of action films, you always think of there's 50 bad guys who shoot at the one good guy. All of the bad guys miss, and the bad guy has one gun that never runs out of bullets, or he has an unending assortment of weaponry from all sorts. He pulls them out from he can pull it out of his shoe. He could pull out a shotgun like that out of his shoe and kill every 50 bad guys with that one shotgun. That's Commando. There's plenty of scenes where he'll shoot one bullet and there'll be 55 explosions that simultaneously go off at once. All the villains are character actors who all these guys. And number one, this is a Joe Silver production. So Joe Silver was like the action producer of the '80s. Commando, Lethal Weapon, all the Lethal Weapons, the first two Die Hards, 48 Hours, the first one, Action Jackson, Predator. I could go on and on and on, but though you guys get the idea. Joe Silver produced all of those movies. I believe Joe Silver produced. Don't quote me. I think he produced Streets of Fire, the Walter Hill movie. I think. Don't quote me. I could be wrong, but he produced all of those movies of that era. And when you watch those movies, coincidentally, he also produced Digressing, Ricochet, with Denzel Washington and John Lithgow. I always forgot he was a producer on that movie. But if you watch all those movies, you will see a lot of the bit parts of the bad guys and the good guy characters are all sprinkled throughout all the Joe Silver productions. Oh, I forgot Last Boy Scout, throughout that era, and Hudson Hawk. So all those actors. So you notice here, Bill Duke, the great Bill Duke, is in here. David Patrick Kelly, Warriors, Luther from 48 Hours, he's in it. Vernon Wells from The Road Warrior, Dan Hedaya from a slew of all kinds of movies. Dan Hedaya has done everything. Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss is in this movie. Ray Dong Chong is in this movie. I can't remember the guy who he always plays like the villain who gets killed in like every single movie. I cannot remember. He's the Hispanic gentleman. Forgive me, guys. I should know his name, but you guys know who I'm talking about. He gets killed in every movie. I think he gets hit by the truck in Heat by Tom Sizemore, and then I can't remember that gentleman's name, but he's in it. All these Bill Paxton even pops up for a tiny part. You've seen all these actors time and time again. So it has all the stereotypical cliches of '80s action movies. But this was not a cliché at the time. This was, the beginning of that whole thing. This film throws logic totally out the window. So anybody who is a kid now or did not grow up in the '80s, if you watch this movie now, it's probably quite funny to you because it's funny to me. But the thing about it is that this is one of the films that solidified my love of golden era Arnold Schwarzenegger and my love of film. So for me, when the absurdities are made fun of, I get quite pissed about it. You know what I mean? Because I recognize how absurd this is. And the thing about it is, once the movie starts, logic does not come into play. So as soon as the movie starts, you know what you're in for. They murder a guy who's taking out the garbage, and the garbage people are like going away, and the guy goes like, "Hey guys, hey, wait up. Hey, I was afraid you're gonna miss me." And they turn around with a gun and go, "Don't worry, we won't." And so that sets the tone of what you're in for with Commando. And the one-liners just do not. Arnold doesn't just get one-liners. I mean, I'm trying to think right offhand the great one-liners that Arnold has. The one I could think of right offhand was Arnold Schwarzenegger breaks a guy's neck on the airplane. Keep in mind, this is an airplane. An airplane in the middle of the day. There's people in front of him and in back of him. If anybody knows how small an airplane is, there's no way he could actually get away with a kill in that small amount of space. But it is a film. Like I said, logic is out the window. But I love how the steward is played by Chelsea Fields, the wife from The Last Boy Scout, and Don Johnson's ex-wife from Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. She pops up and she goes, "Is there anything else you can have or whatever?" And he goes, "Oh, nothing, but don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired." I was like, it's the best. I mean, let off some steam, Bennett. He hangs Sully, David Patrick Kelly, over the cliff, and he lets him go. Ray Dong Chong goes, "What'd you do with Sully?" And he goes, "I let him go." It's like, oh my God, it's just, oh my goodness. The one-liners do not stop. And what I love is how, along with the good guys being totally like nonchalant about like murdering people in broad daylight, in public, in malls. And guys, this is the 80s, so this is the time of the malls, when malls were really, really big. So that was a fun thing to remember how malls used to be and watching this movie. And there's tons of phone booths in the mall. Phone booths, remember those guys? Um, it was just funny. I mean, they're killing people in malls, security guards. There's gun blazings in front of everybody. This is how you know times have changed. Guns are blazing in malls. People are just walking, jumping out of airplanes. There's a scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger jumps out of an airplane and he goes through security, running on the landing where airplanes take off, runs in the middle of this thing and just goes into the airport. Logic is totally out the window. It's fantastic. All the bad guys, Bill Duke, Vernon Wells, David Patrick Kelly, and Dan Hedaya are all heavy hitter bad guys, and they are appropriately mustache twirling slimy. Of course, David Patrick Kelly, who he is fantastic at playing scumbags. He's great at that. It just he's so good as Sully. He's such a Weasley little scumbag, and he's so great at it. And of course, at this time, there's also a lot of misogyny in these movies. As part of course for the era. Women are basically sex objects in this movie, or screaming as the boys are killing and all this sort of stuff. But what I like is that, I guess they had to, have a good actor with Arnold, because Arnold at this time wasn't that quite of a strong an actor yet. So they gave Rae Dawn Chong to act opposite. And plus, he needed some female eye candy too for him to run around with. Rae Dawn Chong, she's a very attractive woman. And she's kind of there to kind of explain to the audience that this is absurd, this is ridiculous, don't take it seriously. And that's what I love. I love how this movie does not in any shape or form take itself seriously. That's what's great. It goes along at a brisk pace. It's not, Michael Bay, Bad Boys 2 hours and 55 minutes. This movie is an hour and I believe 28 minutes, which I miss this era of a briskly paced action film that gets straight to the point. It's just fun. It throws logic out the window. It's not trying to be hyper gritty, Training Day, Street Kings, hyper realistic, documentary, Bourne style. No, it just gets to the point, clean and cut. You're gonna have a good time. It's going to throw logic out the window. The second you see Bill Duke go into a car dealership, and first of all, this is the era too where also people of color were kind of more side characters, or the partner who got killed in these sort of films. So there's a lot of, you would still in films say things like white characters would say to a black man, brother, at that time. It was just kind of how it was at that time in films. But there's a scene where the guy's trying to sell Bill Duke a car, and he kind of goes like, oh, well, you like Cadillacs, brother, step on right in here. And I just love how the guy's like this appropriately slimy car salesman. And Bill Duke gets in the car, he starts the car, and the guy's like, go ahead, start it up. And it's just like, when would he ever have the keys to a car inside the building? Bill Duke runs the guy over and drives the car through the plate glass window of the car dealership and drives away. That's the kind of movie Commando is. It's great, man. It is so much fun. I love the complete disregard for human life in this movie. That's the fun thing about 80s movies. This was a time where you could, with no remorse, kill 100 people in a film in every creative way possible, and the hero could wink, and you could go along with a great fun-loving song at the end of the movie. It's the only. And interesting is, as many people as Arnold kills in this movie, it's amazing how the kills kind of they're a little bit mean-spirited, but the movie is so absurd that it doesn't feel cruel. Like, he chops a man's arm off. He gets a guy with a buzzsaw, stabs him with a pitchfork, slits a guy's throat, blows a guy up, throws a steaming pipe through his chest. I don't know if he runs anybody over. I might have forgotten. But he shoots people in the head. He blows people up with grenades. He kills at least 200 people in this movie. And it doesn't at all identify, this is a video game. It's a video game. It's great. I love this movie. I love Commando so much. I want to add, not to mention that this is a cartoon. James Horner's score. James Horner did the music for 48 Hours 1 and 2. He did the music for Aliens. Tons of films James Horner has done music for. And a lot of this score that has kind of the Caribbean, Jamaican drums in the background was in the first and the second 48 Hours movies. And I think I read it somewhere. I think James Horner has passed away. But I believe reading in something on the internet where he said a lot of the score for Commando, he obviously adopted from. At this time, it was only the first 48 Hours. 48 Hours, another didn't come on until years later. But he adopted a lot of the score for this film from the first 48 Hours movie. And the score is fantastic. It's a very kind of just Caribbean and very kind of, it gives it a gritty feel to it. It doesn't feel as gritty as 48 Hours does, because 48 Hours was a little bit more raw or down and dirty than Commando is. Commando is kind of raw too, but it's a little bit more cartoony than 48 Hours was. Slightly more realistic, if you could call it that. A little bit more real. So I love the score. One thing I also want to state too is the way the action in particular is cut in this movie. This is before the era of shaky cam. This is a case in point that you ain't got to do all that shaky cam stuff for your fist fights, for your gun fights, for your explosions. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to do it. As I was watching this movie, because I've seen it well over 1,000 times. I don't know how many times I've seen Commando. But, and coincidentally, or digressing, I first saw the film, and I'm going to jump back to what I was saying. But I first saw Commando, me and my father, and my brothers and my sisters, and my mother, all of us as a family. I believe it premiered on the Showtime cable network. Back when Showtime had the Pointer Sisters. It's so exciting. They had a logo, and it was like in blue. But I believe we watched it when it came on Showtime. And all as a family, we watched Commando. And I don't know, I think I was about 6 years old, maybe. I was 5 or 6 or something. But I had already seen Conan the Destroyer. And I think this was the second Arnold film I had ever remember seeing. Because I think it was Destroyer, Commando, Terminator, and then I had gone back and seen Barbarian. And then I had kind of all seen them as they had come out after that. But pretty much it was Conan the Destroyer and Commando that just, my love of obsession with Arnold Schwarzenegger and him being my childhood hero was just, this film to me set the badassery that became Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, just flat out. This is the template for the badassery of 1980s Arnold Schwarzenegger. But what I was going to say, in rewatching the movie again, I just observed how there's not really a lot of movement in the camera when the action scenes are going. Like, there's not a lot of just doing this and that. Literally, the action and the way it's cut, meaning the way you jump from angle to angle. And this is before the time there wasn't rapid cuts, so it wasn't boom, 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 boom. You actually can see where the characters are running. And the action on the film, what the characters are doing just speaks for itself. It shows how, in this age of superhero movies and CGI, that the action of a film like Commando and of this era, the action in 80s films and 70s film and well into early 90s action films has so much more of an impact. It's much more of an impact to actually see a real human being fly through the air and hit a wall, to see the fantastic scene in the mall where a guy literally swings across the mall for real and jumps on top of an elevator. To see all those things, to see blood squibs, and it's fake blood, but to see the blood squib fly off an actor, it just is so much more impactful than this something that's CGI that I know is not real. It looks cool, but I inherently know it's not real. So it just, these action, and I think that's kind of what John Wick 1 and 2 have gotten back to, is the real practical action in camera and how much more impactful. And it's just more exciting for the audience. It just really feels more funner, and it just is more engaging, even though you know it's real. Okay, so I think I'm done pretty much kissing up to Commando and how great it is. And I don't care what people say, because now we're going to go on to the negative. Which for me, there's very little in Commando, but I'm really more talking about other people's opinions. If there's any negative, a thing that I could say about Commando. There's only one scene I've ever in this movie really didn't like, and that's the scene where he kills Bennett with the pipe. That is the only scene that that's just but at this point the movie's so crazy and it's so over the top. But that by the time he throws the pipe into him, you're already on board with it, you know. um, but that was the only scene I really didn't particularly like. But interestingly enough, I was watching something on YouTube digressing, and Joe Silver was the producer, was doing like a speaker thing where he talks to the students about producing movies and blah 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 with this blah blah blah. Joe Silver does not like this movie, and I was very shocked to hear him say that. And Joe Silver basically said that he understands that everybody else in the world, mostly action fans, in particular action fans of my age and up who grew up with Commando, love Commando. He does not. And part of the reasons is all the illogical, over the top things in the movie he does. And also too, Commando has a lot of bloopers in it. A lot of bloopers. There's clearly scenes where you can see that the guns are rubber. Guns will be pressed up against people, and you'll see the gun bend like that. There's a scene where, obviously, the scene where he hangs David Patrick Kelly upside down. You can see the wire coming from his. Not to mention, it's illogical that a man could hold a man up, even as small as David Patrick Kelly. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, you wouldn't be able to do that. There's scenes where I don't know if I pointed out the dummies, where at the end Arnold Schwarzenegger is running and he goes like, dude, and all the buildings blow up. You can clearly see there's dummies, mannequins just standing there like, and they just, as they get blown up. So, and I'm trying to think, there's a couple of other bloopers in there that maybe I might have missed, but those are the ones that I can think of right off rip. Of course, the scene where Arnold jumps out the airplane, which is like one of my favorites in there. You can see that it's a dummy dropped out the plane, because like the leg is like turned like at this weird angle, and you're like, no man's knee would move like that. If it was, he wouldn't be walking or running. But so there's tons of stuff like that. But that's what adds to the charm of Commando. This movie is carried by a brisk pace, a fantastic score, and very good character actors, and the personality and charismatic persona of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and some really badass cool action. Because the way the action is cut in this movie. Oh, I want to digress. One thing that they also that I left out was how during the fight scenes, and you used to see this in a lot in Jean-Claude Van Damme movies during that time, was the triple cut within the fights. Because like now the Bourne movies do the shaky cam, but at this time they were doing a lot of adding in extra frames within fight scenes. So meaning, like, if you watch a Van Damme film or even some of Arnold's, you'll see, like, for instance, the final fight where he fights Bennett, which is a pretty cool final fight, by the way. Regardless of kind of the difference in physical conditioning between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Vernon Wells, clearly one is in great shape and one is not. As indicated by the outfit that is, didn't even notice at the time, as many times as I've seen this movie, is homoerotic. I didn't even notice that until I saw it pointed out on the internet blog. But anyway, as Arnold punches, you'll see that he swings, right? So there'll be one swing, and then it'll cut mid-swing and show another angle of a punch. And it'll usually be about 2 or 3 frames of one single punch cut into which was supposed to be perceived as either one punch or multiple punches coming at one time. So instead of seeing the actor just go whoo, whoo, it'll just go wham, 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 and you'll see it. But that's a style that I really liked in 80s and early 90s action films. Digressing, I know on the commentary for Universal Soldier with Roland Emmerich and the other guy, they didn't like the triple cuts that they used to use in that era. I love the triple cuts within the fight, but they just don't do that anymore. That's actually one I'd like to kind of see come back. I used to think the triple cuts made the fights a little bit more impactful. In particular, you'll see a lot of that like in Van Damme movies like Death Warrant, Lionheart, Double Impact. Those are three Van Damme films. Cyborg. I think Bloodsport used it a lot too. Kickboxer, but a lot of those from that Van Damme era really used the triple cuts a lot in the fights. Little bit in Time Cop too. He didn't really use them too much after that film, but that's a style that I kind of would like to see come back. I thought it'd be kind of cool if maybe you see that in John Wick, but John Wick is kind of more going for the old school, just kind of let the action carry out on film. Um, but I noticed, yeah, Joe Silver doesn't like the film, and you'll really notice that, of course, there's a new thing now where everything that we enjoyed from back in the '80s is a new thing now where it's all bad now. So people are going back to, and I think it's just a trend to go back and hate on things that you all loved. I even saw digressing that people are kind of hating on the Goonies a little bit now. I've only actually found one person ever in my life who did not like the Goonies. Excuse me, maybe two, which is very odd because everybody loves the Goonies. But but I think I saw a review on the Schmoes No channel from a couple years ago, and I think it was I can't remember which one. I can't remember which one of the guys. The gentleman who's the comedian on the Schmoes knows. He had never seen it, but the other guy did, who used to work on WWF back in the day and worked with Joe Silver. I'm sorry, I can't remember the guy's names right off rip. But either way, the guy who had seen Commando many times, of course, he loves it. But the comedian guy, I think Mark is his name, who had never seen Commando, he didn't like it. And that's just so odd to me. I just can't logically understand in my mind how anybody could dislike Commando. It's so much fun and it's so ridiculous. And it's literally a fun movie to watch. It's enjoyable. It's entertaining. It is fun from beginning to end. It's in and out. All business, all fun. I don't understand how anybody could dislike it. Matter of fact, I've even heard when people talk about Arnold's career when he was at the height of his fame, people kind of lump Commando into his, because of course, like Terminator 1 and 2 and True Lies and Total Recall and Twins. Those are kind of like the really good Schwarzenegger. Predator. Those are the really good Schwarzenegger movies. And then like I think Commando and I think like Red Heat and Raw Deal are kind of a little bit more lumped into the Thor. But I don't really. I think Commando is in the group. I definitely think Commando is in the top 6 great Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. It's an illogical, absurd movie, but I think in terms of the persona of what we know Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in top form, and I think just a fun, cool action movie, cheeseball 80s action movie. I still think, I don't think Commando's a throwaway movie. Raw Deal is a throwaway movie. That's okay. But I think Commando is up there with the top 6 great Arnold Schwarzenegger movies of that time. And I am going to do a list of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies and my least favorite Schwarzenegger movies. But you know what, guys? That's my review of Commando. Let me not also go on without saying I love the closing credits song. And I even so much love the way the credits look. The credits are like in italics, so they're tilted that way. And I love how they rise up out the water as the plane flies up. And I think the song is called We Fight for Love. Come on, man. Because every 80s or 90s action movie has to end with like a cool rock themed song. It's actually a cool song. It's actually, it's a really, poppy kind of tune. I love Commando. I have always loved Commando. The rewatchability is there. I do think that it is a fantastic, fun 80s action thrill ride. It's just a fun, enjoyable movie to watch. If you ever have the guys and girls over, you want to crack open some beers, maybe have a little something else by your own doing, not mine. Do that, because if you watch, Commando movies like Roadhouse, this part of that, just movies that you're with it, you're enjoying the fun. This is a great movie. It's fantastic. I love Commando. To me, it's a solid 10 out of 10. Screw everybody who doesn't like it. They just don't know how to have fun. Man, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, leave comments down below about Commando, and do not forget to hit the bell. I'm actually going to come back with my Arnold-a-thon, where I'm going to be pretty much reviewing all the Schwarzenegger movies from Conan 1 up to True Lies. And RMJ Movie Reviews. I'll see you lovely people soon.